Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Happy Thursday, everybody, on Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor with you. We've got a jam-packed show coming up. Chelsea Messenger, for the final time, for a while, will join us to talk a little betting. Super Bowl edition. Looking forward to all the insights and angles there from our betting insider. We'll have Tim Fitzgerald on in hour number 2 to go through K-State, the big win over KU, what looks ahead on the weekend, and maybe a trend of things to come. We'll take a look at that. Big night of basketball last night for the Shockers. We'll go over Wichita State's game. We'll take you to Vegas, of course, for the Super Bowl. Let you listen in to some of the things that the Chiefs said yesterday. Tommy, good morning. How are you?
Busy morning this morning. Looking forward to jumping right into it, counting down the days to the big game, and a lot to get to today.
Tommy Castor there. I'm Jacob Albracht. Jad Chambers producing for us, manning that KFH hotline at 869-1240. That's where later in the show you'll have an opportunity to win some HTO tea and coffee. We'll take your calls if you want to chime in on anything we're talking about. We're going to get into bets in our next segment. Let's start with the Shockers then, Tommy, last night, just as an order of things to get it all in today. Big winners last night, exactly what we wanted to see. Wasn't, an overwhelming second half, but they maintained a 20-point lead, and that's, good enough, right? They didn't come out of the halftime break and lose the second half. They weren't as good as they were in the first half, but when you're up 20 points, it's pretty hard to be. Great performance from them last night. They look good on offense. They look good on defense. UTSA has a big-time scorer on the roster that they held in check for most of the game. You love to see that. Harlan Beverly and Colby Rogers continue to lead the way offensively, which I do think is the best way for the Shockers to play. And that's, quite frankly, exactly what we needed to see Wichita State do against a team like that.
Well, I talked about it yesterday on the show that UTSA, they have a pretty terrible defense. They're one of the worst in the country defensively. And so it was an opportunity for Wichita State to flex a little bit with their offense. And we haven't seen that throughout an entire 40 minutes for a while. And the Shockers were able to do that. And so, putting up 84 points, that's above their season average. And so they were able to take advantage of, the rough defense that UTSA provides. Like you mentioned, it wasn't a great second half defensively for the Shockers, but they were able to get it done, maintain that 20-point lead. Really good scoring effort from Colby Rogers, Harlan Beverly, like you mentioned. I think Quincy Ballard altered the game down low quite a bit for Wichita State. Because really what it came down to for UTSA when they were trying to score the basketball is they weren't really, excited about going up against Quincy Ballard at the rim. And so that was a big advantage for Wichita State as well. But yeah, 20-point victory and a complete game is what we wanted to see from Wichita State.
8 turnovers is probably too many against that team, but it's hard to look too much into the numbers, I think, in games like that where you have massive leads and, what are you doing? You're getting a lot of guys minutes and doing all the things that you're doing. 2 of those turnovers were from Jacob Germany, who we haven't seen play much, if at all, right? If you look otherwise, Harlan Beverly, who's always going to have some with his aggressive play style, only had 2, right? And Bijan Cortez had 2, but those guys each had 5 assists. So I think you take all of that and feel pretty good. Rebounding, they were fine. We knew they'd be fine in rebounding. Free throws. We haven't talked a lot about 15 to 15 from the line, Tommy. Like sometimes when you play as many close games in the second half as you have, you see things like that as big picture. Like a lot of times it does get down to the fundamentals. You hit your free throws, you win games. We know that. So that's good to see. I mean, look, you play a team like that, you win by 20, everything feels good. But I think bigger picture, when we look at the way they played against Memphis this second time, even though they lost that game in a very frustrating fashion, which is the trend they need to buck the most, they played at a level where that's sort of what we thought they needed to be this year, that level of play. Now, they didn't hang on to it, but then they come back and do that. That's the first time, really, Tommy, they've done that in a game where they just come out and flat dominate somebody. I mean, you have the SMU win. That's the only other conference win. You weren't going to do that to that team. But even if you go back, Southern Illinois was a 1-point win, right? Richmond was a nice big win in Norfolk State. And I haven't checked in on Richmond in a long time. But you got to go all the way back to, again, pre-December to see that kind of victory, which is crazy to think about, but it's there. And now the big one looms on Sunday. Should be plenty of time to take that in before the Super Bowl festivities. I hope they have a big crowd for that when it's on national TV against Florida Atlantic. You've got East Carolina and Charlotte next week on the road. You want to talk about a big test. I would, I'd kind of argue, Tommy, like if they, what would you rather have, a win over Florida Atlantic or back-to-back road wins next week against East Carolina and Charlotte? Like, what would be more impressive to you? I almost think the 2 road wins back-to-back would be, from this team. We know they can hang with Florida Atlantic. I know they could, even beat Florida Atlantic at their best. But can they go on the road and win back-to-back games? They've got a lot of little things within the remainder of the season that will be interesting to follow as we make our way to the AAC tournament. And again, we've said it for a long time. All you can hope for at this point, right, is the hope as a fan that they could go make noise in that conference tournament. And games like we saw against Memphis and games like we saw last night certainly do give you, I think, the hope that they could go do that.
Yeah, and real quick, going back to UTSA, I mean, we talked quite a bit about how they're not a great basketball team. That being said, though, going back into January, they took both Memphis and Florida Atlantic to overtime, both games in January against those 2 opponents. They lost both of them, but they took them both to overtime. So this is a team that, they know that they can hang with some of the bigger teams in the conference. They just don't have, I don't think, the defensive firepower to be able to take care of those wins. And so when you're comparing those records, yeah, I mean, UTSA came into this game with a better conference record than Wichita State did. But I think we all had this understanding that from a talent perspective, Wichita State was better, and they needed to show that last night. And they did. And that stretch of basketball that you mentioned, going on the road next week against a couple of teams that you should win at East Carolina and at Charlotte. I mean, I think that tells you,
Charlotte's been good.
They have been
good.
I
mean, Charlotte's been good. They're not, I don't think Wichita State's going to be favored in that game.
Right.
But that seems like an opportunity.
It's a good litmus test, I think, for the Shockers and where they want to end this season.
I agree.
Absolutely. And then you follow that up with a home game against Tulsa, try to get a little bit of revenge against Tulsa when they beat you on the road last week. And that's a Tulsa team, too, that's not particularly good. And Wichita State held a lead in the second half and collapsed in the last 4 minutes of that game on the road. So you've got some opportunities to redeem yourself in the next week or two. And I know, having Florida Atlantic come into town on Sunday, you've got a top 25 team in Koch Arena. That's going to be able to, if you can get that win, I think, again, you start looking really more in a positive light with this program. I'm not expecting it, but I do think that chance is there.
Yeah, it will. So I'm going to give you another reason to be optimistic. Florida Atlantic has to go on the road and play UAB tonight. So it'll be back-to-back road games when Florida Atlantic, and consider this, it's Thursday, right? So you've got Florida Atlantic that has to travel twice, and the first leg of that is a late game. It's the 8:00 game tonight on the road. Then they got to turn around and come back here on Sunday for an early game. So the opportunity is ripe for Wichita State at home on Sunday, right? Like this is, and if you recall, the last time they played the same, time as the Chiefs, they did pretty well. That's when they beat SMU. So maybe that's if you're a superstitious type. But you've got Florida Atlantic, who we know is not the same as they were last year, at least as dominant as they were last year. A team that you absolutely had a chance against the first time you played them at their place has to come now on a short week, back-to-back road games. It's really as short as you can get, Thursday to Sunday, Thursday late to Sunday early. And you get them at your place as you're playing your best basketball of the season. Go beat number 20 or whatever they are. Right? Like, go get that done and hope they don't lose tonight, right? Hope they don't have some eye opener tonight. Hope they take care of business against UAB. That's a really big opportunity. Like, from a betting perspective, I can't wait to see what that line is, because when you look at those little things that I don't think get considered when college basketball lines are set, I just don't think the odds makers have time for all that. But that might be an opportunity there. And then, okay, so if you take all that in, you feel like you're going to be in a position to win that game. There's a decent chance. Now you got to go finish it. Now you got to be able to go do that against the best team in the league. And that will be the biggest opportunity for them this season is that game at home. I don't think they'll have a bigger one the rest of the way.
Yeah.
You had Memphis. That was a big opportunity on there. You're not going to get any bigger the rest of this season than what they'll have on Sunday.
And I'd like to think that, the crowd turnout will be good. I mean, I know it's Super Bowl Sunday. I know it's an 11 a.m. start, all of that. But I mean, I think it would be a little bit different if the Shockers had laid another egg last night. But that was a complete victory. I think that gives you some momentum into this game against a top 25 opponent. I'd like to think crowd turnout will be fine to good. I don't know. I don't want to set, really lofty expectations with this game. But I'd like to think that the turnout on Sunday will be a good game because, like you mentioned, this is the biggest home game that you have left on your schedule. You're playing at home against Tulsa. You're playing at home against Temple, playing at home against Rice. None of them compare to a top 25 Florida Atlantic team coming into town.
Yeah, I want to think they can get it done. I really do. And I do think they can. I think they'll be in a position to do it. Then you've got to do it, though. And that's the next thing for this team. There are plenty of things out there that could leave a good taste, I think, in the mouths of fans at the end of this season. Winning this game is the next opportunity to do that. Winning in Memphis would have been a really good chance, right? Beating SMU at home. You didn't think going in that would be one you really hung your hat on, but it has been because things haven't gone very well. So now what's the next test? And what's the next test? And then you get to the conference tournament. And can you win a couple of games there? Can you make some magic happen? At least it's there. I've found myself more excited about this group over the last probably 10 days or so. Even though they blew it at Memphis, that's not as egregious as some of the other blown games because Memphis is really good. Memphis was at home and Memphis hit big-time shots, right? So hopefully the positive momentum continues. Great performance last night, 20-point win. It's exactly what they needed to do. It's funny, Tommy. You know what the line at halftime was? I think I sent you this. 20.5. So the Shockers get up 20. And I looked at halftime and I'm like, I got to just look. I mean, there's so many trends that say Wichita State doesn't play well in the second half. So it's 20.5. I was like, let me put $5 on 20.5 on the other side, right? On UTSA. And of course they win by 20 and 20.5 hits. It was pretty funny. But I had to do it because I had to bring it up today, but they did, they kept the 20-point lead, but it wasn't enough to cover that 20.5 that became the halftime line. Good game for the Shockers last night. Glad that they're back on the right track. Hopefully they can continue that momentum into the weekend. Sunday should be a lot of fun. Really excited about it. Kind of an appetizer for the Super Bowl, which we'll talk about next from a betting perspective. We bring in our pal Chelsea Messenger. We're going to get into some Super Bowl talk as we make our way through this first hour. Tim Fitzgerald coming in the second hour. Lots to get to here on Sports Daily on this Thursday. We'll do it all for you as we make our way through it. Chad, do you think we should... All right, welcome back to Sports Daily. Tommy Castor, Jacob Albracht here with you on this Thursday. We're going to play a little bit of audio from the Super Bowl yesterday before we get into betting talk with Chelsea Messenger. So let's just sort of take you through some of these, Tommy. We'll start with Andy Reid. First from Big Red talking about Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. So this is two different questions, one about Mahomes, one about Kelce. Jad will just take them back to back as he talks about those two players in this, sort of triumvirate of excellence that's allowed the Chiefs to get back to this point.
Spags and I have been around a long time. We're not getting younger, but we've seen a lot of quarterbacks kind of come and go, and he's a heck of a player. And you're right. I've been fortunate to have some great ones. Spags has been on a couple of those teams where they just you've had these great guys that could play the game, see the game, and it's just special. It passed right up there at the top of that list.
At this point, Andy, where do you feel like Travis stands among the greatest tight ends in the history of the game? And do you think being the best ever at his position is something that motivates him?
Yeah, so I think all these guys want to do the best they possibly can and to play the best they possibly can. And then I'd tell you Travis's numbers probably stand up for themselves. I would tell you that he has an opportunity to go down as one of the best, if not the best, tight ends to play. Does he spend a ton of time worrying about that? I don't think he does. Every game he goes, let's just go win. I mean, that's kind of his thinking. And however, he's competitive, and during crunch time, he's going to be there for you. And want the ball to help out the team.
I mean, that's a pretty good description of Travis Kelce, I think, Tommy. Mahomes is obvious. Of course, Andy Reid thinks Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback he's had. But the Kelce thing is interesting because it's that the question was, does being the best ever motivate him? And Andy Reid's point is like he doesn't care. Like he just wants to win these games. And I do think that there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, I think he probably enjoys being highly successful, but anytime people ask Kelce about his contract and should he be paid more and all of this stuff, which of course he should be comparatively, he's always just like, man, I'm lucky to be doing this. I don't care about all that. I just want to. So I think that that's pretty genuine there from Kelce of like, this dude really just wants to win. He doesn't care. Like he enjoys it and wants to win these games. And that is a part of why they've been successful. He could have easily been gone by now because he should be paid more based on his performance on the field and all these things. It is pretty rare to find that in a player that great, but I think that's total truth.
Yeah, I do think that there is obviously that level of, genuineness that he brings to the table. And to your point, there are 31 other teams in the NFL that would love Travis Kelce on their roster. And that, and I don't know if all 31 would have done this, but I do think a vast majority would have paid him more than what he's making in Kansas City. And so I think the fact that he has consistently chosen this franchise and consistently chosen this front office, this coaching staff, this quarterback, all of that, every single time that he's had an opportunity to go elsewhere, he's come back to Kansas City. I think that tells you all you need to know about who Travis Kelce is.
Yeah, I mean, like it's and he's got a pretty good retirement plan going right now too. So everything's looking good, but it is interesting with him, and we've said it for a long time. Like they're fortunate that he doesn't care about some of that stuff. Here's Travis Kelce talking about just like the things that make him proud. We'll play this for you. Here's Kelce.
How happy I make my family on game days. I wish there was a camera in the suite or on my family every single time I scored or every time we won a big game. Seeing their excitement, seeing my brother against the Bills go absolutely nuts and show his love for my success. Those are the moments I'm most proud of.
Travis, your mom has been handling media like a pro. How do you think she's been handling it?
Communications major. Where do you guys think me and my brother get it from? She's a saint. My mother is absolute sweetheart, and you can ask her anything. She's very down to earth, very humble. Will never take the praise. She'll always put it on somebody else, and that's why we love her. And she's just been amazing, and it's been so cool to see everybody appreciate her and accept her the way she is.
She has trained them well. They're both very good at that, and it's so it's good. But that's it, man. I really do think that's why. Like for me, Travis Kelce is as likable a player as we've ever had. So is Patrick Mahomes. Those guys being together, along with one of the most likable coaches the league's ever had, makes it hard to me to see this team as a villain. And I know that people that they beat see them as a villain, but I just don't think that this team will ever wear that hat well, because I don't think people actually believe it. I think most people do like Travis Kelce. I think most people do like Patrick Mahomes. I think most people do like Andy Reid. Mahomes talked about being a villain. A lot of guys were asked about it. They're trying to embrace it, but I don't know that I buy it. Here's Mahomes on the villain role.
I know everyone prefers to be liked, but is it a role that you kind of enjoy in a way? Do you feed off of that?
Not necessarily. I think I just like winning. If you win a lot and that causes you to be a villain, then I'm okay with it. But at the end of the day, I'm going to enjoy playing the game and try to win as much as possible.
And that's it, right? Like, they're always going to get a little bit of villain. Like, 49ers fans hate the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs beat them in the Super Bowl, and now they're about to play them again. I think Bills fans probably hate the Chiefs right now. I don't think fans of just general teams in general, though, feel it. People, they're trying hard to paint them as a villain because Taylor Swift is dating one of their players. Like, you have to reach pretty hard. They don't do anything that just naturally comes of it. Nick Bosa is a good villain. It comes naturally to him. He's kind of a jerk anyway. But like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, whether they're playing golf against, Tom Brady, or whether they're on, like, whatever it is, they're just like, they're likable, right? I don't think they're ever going to fully be the villains that some teams have been in the past.
They're like those guys when you were in high school that were good at everything, and they weren't. You wanted them to be jerks. Like, you wanted them to try to take your lunch money or beat you up in the parking lot, but they were just nice guys. But that made you even more mad because you wanted them to be jerks because they were good at everything, and you felt like, okay, if they treated me badly, then I would be able to hate them more. But then you just hate them even more because they're just nice guys. Like,
yeah, maybe that exists. I don't know.
Well, you were probably one of those guys in high school.
I don't know that I was good at everything in high school.
I certainly was not.
I was not good at talking to girls. I was a below average baseball player. I don't know that. I had a great year of showing sheep my junior year of high school. No, my family actually, my dad talks about, he's like, I cannot believe you do what you do for a living. There was a stretch of time where I wasn't sure you would like ever talk to anybody. Like, I was so shy in high school. And then it obviously went away.
Hey, I can hang my hat on being on the JV golf team, and I was really good in Scholars Bowl. So I felt like if I could be on a game show, I could probably walk away with some money. But no, I think that's kind of how, like, there were guys, like, I remember that in high school, like, they were really
good. But I partied with those guys.
Well, yeah.
Like, I didn't have any animosity to them.
I think that it was, at least for me, a little bit of, it's kind of a jealousy thing. It's like, you're good at everything, and I want you to be a jerk. I want you to say the things to justify my hatred for you and my jealousy towards you, but you don't. Like, you just take the high road every time, and it just makes me that much more angry.
Yeah, I think we differ there. I enjoy that about, because sometimes those people have every opportunity to be a jerk, and then not to take it is great. Like, Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes were probably, if I had to guess, friends with everybody that they've ever been around, right? I mean, maybe Kelce fits like the meathead role a little bit for people, but I don't see he and his brother in that personality. I could be wrong. Who knows? Right? We've never heard anything like that about Patrick Mahomes. But there are plenty of players who you look back on and you're like, oh yeah, there's 100% chance that guy was a jerk in high school. Bosa is a great example of that. Like, that guy wasn't cool, probably to to nerds like us in high school. Like, I don't know. But beside that, like, it's pretty impressive though, the way they do. Like, think about everything off the field with those two guys and how they always just handle it well. Like, it's crazy. One more thing I want to get to here. So we told you about Eric Bieniemy and the AFC game, the AFC Championship game speech. Here's Andy Reid talking about that. I was hoping he would get a chance to spend some time on that. Andy Reid talking about EB and his future.
Eric Bieniemy, have you had a chance to talk to him by chance? And what do you think his coaching future is? And I'll have a second one as well.
I did. He actually came in and talked to our team before our last game. So he talked to the offensive guys and hung out with us in our meetings. So I have had a chance to talk to him. And he's still up for a couple of jobs. Yeah.
What do you think his future is in coaching? And would there be a spot on your staff if it doesn't work out for him somewhere else?
Yeah, I can't answer the last part because I have no spot right now. But I would tell you, I think his coaching future is great. I mean, I'm obviously a big fan of his, and I know the things that he can do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad. I think that was Teicher there. I'm glad he asked that question. Andy Reid can't answer it right now. I mean, I don't know that I don't think it's tampering, but yeah, like, what does that say to a coach you have currently on the staff?
Yeah.
No, but I that will be a curious situation if it does come about, and I think there's a decent chance it does. I used to think like, no, because it became such a topic and distraction every year that they wouldn't want to. Now I kind of think maybe they would welcome him back with open arms. I don't know. That will be an interesting thing to see in the offseason, which of course doesn't come until after this one's played. Let's bring in Chelsea Messenger for a segment after this break. We'll come in and we'll talk a ton about Super Bowl betting. What's out there? What do you see? What does she like? We'll tell you what we like. We made our picks official through our friends at BetQL, and we're on paper. We're on the record with it. So we'll get into some of that, tell you what we think. Betting talk for the Super Bowl next on Sports Daily.
Go check out all of the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Also, be sure to check out the Daily Tip podcast for more of Chelsea Messenger analysis. Just search BetMGM wherever you find your podcasts.
All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor with you on this Thursday. Glad to be with you, and we are glad to be joined now by Chelsea Messenger, our betting insider. Get one final hurrah here with Chelsea as the biggest betting day of the year, at least the biggest betting event, is in front of us. How are you this morning?
Yeah, we've got a massive game ahead of us, not just for Chiefs fans, but for bettors. We had somebody from BetMGM come on our show earlier this week and said it's expected to be the most bet on event probably in history. You know, since more states are legalizing gambling, we have the whole Taylor Swift behemoth that is, over this one as well. So it is a big day indeed that's coming up on Sunday.
So as we look at, getting closer and closer to the game, I mean, we can look at all the different angles with this. But as of now, about, a little over 72 hours before game time, what stands out to you that you're looking at right now with the game?
I think what draws my attention the most is that all of the money is on the Chiefs, but yet this line is not moving. Because normally you would see, 73% of the bets, which that's the case, are on the Chiefs. Why would they not move this line to 1.5 or, make some kind of movement? Because that's the goal of the sports books. If you're new to sports betting, you're probably thinking that this is a different language, but they want balanced action. The sports books don't want a huge liability on one side to where if the Chiefs win this game, they're going to lose a ton of money. So I think it's a little fishy. Maybe they've had some sharp money come in on the Niners. I'm not sure, but I will say most of the action is probably going to come in on this game closer to the weekend. Most casual fans are betting on this game the day before, the day of. So maybe we will see some line movement, but so far it has been all Kansas City Chiefs money.
That's interesting. I don't know if we're like looking for what would be the fishy part of that, right? Like, are they just wanting more Chiefs? If you wanted more San Francisco money to even it out, right, you would move it toward the Chiefs, but they're not. So what's the angle then?
Well, because usually when we see that, it means that there is sharp money, what they call sharp money. They have these betting syndicates of really smart people who have an entire team, an entire staff that do these things, that bet on sports, that bet on football. And if they have a really respected bettor come in there, that counts more than like Joe Public. Say the majority of the bets represent like the general population. But if they have people that they respect and people who have, cost them a lot of money, maybe that bears more weight in the conversation of where they put the number.
So those bettors are betting who then? And I take offense to them not taking my bets more seriously. But like, where is that sharp money at then?
Well, here, I'm just guessing because that's the thing. They don't tell us because that would be a big advantage for us if we knew what those sharp bettors were doing. But that's just kind of some of the things that go on behind the scenes in the sports books that people don't really know and people don't really talk about. But we'll see for the Chiefs because here's what I keep thinking to myself. For the Chiefs, everything points in their direction. But it does feel like the Niners are a team that we really haven't seen the best of in the postseason thus far. Do we really think this is going to be like the third game in a row where the Niners don't play, two good halves of football? So, everything is pointing towards the Chiefs. But what do we know about sports? That, everything is unpredictable. And sometimes it's just about execution. So I know that's tough to hear, but I think the case for the Niners is definitely there as well.
Are you surprised at all that Patrick Mahomes is an underdog again in this game? I mean, just knowing what he does against the spread and even what he's done outright as an underdog in his career, not only regular season, but in the postseason. Does it surprise you that we know how great the Niners are, but with Mahomes as an underdog, it's crazy.
Yeah, you're right. 10-1-1 against the spread as an underdog. Patrick Mahomes has great numbers. He is a generational talent. He is the best player in the National Football League. But again, like this is only a 2-point spread. It's not like he's getting 3, not like he's getting 3.5. So you're asking for an outright win. This is a good Niners team. And I think, that's the part that we do need to remember. And maybe this comes down to, the final drive. But here's the good thing. If you don't want to pick a side in this game, there are thousands of other bets. So I think I will be leaning more heavily on the prop market as opposed to picking a side. But if I had to pick one, it would be the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's where both of us are too. I keep saying my brain actually says 49ers, but my gut says Chiefs because they're doing the things that I've thought for months could take them to a Super Bowl. They're running the ball. They're playing good defense.
Yeah.
They're doing these things that are, in past years on Chiefs like. And that leads me into something that I've been curious about with the MVP bet. Patrick Mahomes is the favorite. That's kind of duh, the quarterbacks. But with the Chiefs playing the style that they have played, it does seem to me like there are long odds. Like if you took Kelsey, like if you, let's say you think that the Chiefs are going to win, right? Kelsey, Pacheco, Rashee Rice, those three guys who everything funnels through are getting pretty incredible odds to take a swing at. Like you don't think that if it's a storyline bet, the storyline of Travis Kelsey is good. Pacheco's almost 30-1 right now on BetMGM, and Rashee Rice gets like 10 targets a game. If he turns a couple of those into touchdowns at 66-1, like I don't know. Like I'm looking at those MVPs. If there's ever a year it's not going to be a quarterback, it feels like this could be that year really on both sides. And there's some pretty long odds out there for that.
Yeah, Travis Kelsey is the book's biggest liability. They said they have had the most bets on Travis Kelsey to win MVP of any other player. And some of it's price dependent because he's 13-1. You're right. It's a good deal. But the thing about Patrick Mahomes, obviously he's the one throwing to Travis Kelsey. And if Patrick Mahomes makes, one or two plays with his feet, I feel like he locks up MVP. I think it's going to be tough to take it away from Patrick Mahomes. But you were talking about Isaiah Pacheco. I think there's a lane for him because like you said, the Chiefs their brand of offense is a little different this year. And the way that Isaiah Pacheco runs, I know this is a tough matchup going against this Niners run defense that during the regular season has been really good, but they've been run on in the past couple of games. So Isaiah Pacheco, 28-1, not, a bad value there. And then looking at the other side, I think if you think a non-quarterback wins it, if you think the Niners can win this game, or even if you want to hedge a little bit on the Chiefs, take Christian McCaffrey plus 450 to win MVP. Because look at some of the odds or some of the numbers on his rushing props. His rushing prop is set at 90.5. Don't you think that if he runs for over 90.5 yards and he scores a touchdown, he'll at least be in the conversation if the Niners win? I feel like that's an incredible deal. And it almost seems parallel to the year that Cooper Kupp won it, where he had this great regular season, but he's not going to win regular season MVP just because he's not a quarterback. Feels like that's kind of the lane for Christian McCaffrey.
One of the props that I love in this game, Chelsea, is the rushing yard or even rushing attempts from Deebo Samuel. And the reason I say that is because, I do think that the Niners are going to need to lean heavily on the run in this game with their, the game plan. And knowing that Charles Omenihu is out for the Chiefs, Deebo Samuel is that guy that can do the jet sweeps and get out to the edge and that sort of thing. So I do really like that number. How much do you think the Niners will utilize Deebo out of the backfield?
I think they will utilize Deebo, but I feel like it may be more as a receiver. I could be wrong, and it's a really low number for Deebo Samuel. The line is 2.5 rushing attempts, but it's really juicy at minus 185. So when something's that juicy, I don't really, look at it too much just because it feels like an unplayable number. I do think the Chiefs can be run on, and I think the Ravens may be kicking themselves at home. Feels like to me that they should have tried to run the ball a little bit more. But Christian McCaffrey, if you don't want to take his rushing yards, maybe his rushing attempts over 18.5. It's just minus 135, but it feels like Christian McCaffrey is pretty game script proof. Whether they're winning, whether they're losing, I feel like Kyle Shanahan is going to put the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands. And while we're talking about rushing props, what about the line for Brock Purdy? It's 12.5, a really low number for somebody who has clipped this in each of the last two games, ran for over 50 yards last game, including a big first down pickup, I believe, in the final minute of the game or the final drive of the game. Can't remember. But still, we've seen the Chiefs give up a lot of rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks. Every single quarterback in the postseason thus far has hit this number, including Tua Tagovailoa. in like sub-freezing temperatures. So it's not just Lamar Jackson. It's not just Josh Allen, who ran for quite a few yards. Brock Purdy over 12.5 rush yards for -120. I like that one as well.
I've got one for you, Chelsea. I don't know if you've looked at this as I'm just sorting through the props. There is a bet on BetMGM for total rushing attempts in the game. You can get even money right now at over 51.5. Well, I can tell you it's been way, like if you just go back to the last game that each of these teams played, I believe collectively they were into this like 63, 64, something like that. Even money in a game we all feel like both teams want to run the ball on 51.5. Both quarterbacks can run. Deebo Samuel runs. They have a fullback that runs in San Francisco, and then the two running backs. I mean, that seems like a pretty good one to me.
I would imagine the line is set at a certain number for a reason. And this does feel like a word problem on the math portion of the ACT. But I think I see where you're going there. But you've got to remember both these teams have won their games. So you've got to think, okay, is one side game script proof? Because I do think that's the case. If the Niners are behind, they're still going to be running a football. But think, if the Chiefs are behind, a few touchdowns, worst case scenario, are they still going to run the ball? Because we know Patrick Mahomes, if need be, one of the best at dunking his way down the field. So I think that's where the sabotage factor would be.
Do you think that the Niners defense, there's any play there with them? Going back to the AFC Championship game, the Ravens were the number one team in the NFL in getting to the quarterback, but they didn't get to Patrick Mahomes until the second half. Do you think that the Niners, and with Nick Bosa and all of that, there's a play betting wise with them?
I don't think so, but here's how I think that you incorporate the defenses. I think I'm going to ride the trend that's been hot all season long for the Chiefs, and that's been their second half unders. They have gone 16-2 this year. That is the second half total. So I think it's 23 for the Super Bowl, but both of these defenses have been really good in the second half. Over the course of the season, both of these defenses have just been really good in general, but still, think about how the game script goes if you're winning in a Super Bowl. Don't you think both team or the team that's winning is probably going to be playing a little bit more conservative? And then you've seen the defensive adjustments that Steve Spagnuolo has made. The Chiefs defense in the second half has been lights out. Feels like they barely allow any points. So I feel like the second half under is a great play for the Super Bowl. I'll be looking at that and banking on both defenses to kind of clam up and be even better in the second half.
Chelsea, give us some of your other favorite bets before we let you go here. We always appreciate these visits. We always appreciate your insight. Can't wait to do it again and get football. I can't believe we're about to lose football. But what else do you like that we need to know about here for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, there's a lot of bets, aren't there? I'm going to recap the ones that I like the most. Like the Brock Purdy rushing over 12.5. Going to be on that second half under 23.5. I think I would lean towards the Chiefs. If I had to make a play, getting the 2 points, maybe grab it now before this line moves, because maybe it will, before the weekend. But I would say those are my favorite. And then we'll do Travis Kelce anytime touchdown. You got to feed him the ball in the red zone. This guy has 19 career postseason touchdowns. I'll do that as well. Travis Kelce anytime touchdown, -110.
All right, Chelsea Messenger, we appreciate it. Thank you so much all year for the insight and the visits. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
Yeah, best of luck, bet responsibly, and don't forget to enjoy the action.
That's right. Enjoy the action, enjoy the game, enjoy the chicken wings. Chelsea, let's do it again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That was the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, Chelsea Messenger. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. All right, when we come back, more college hoops talk, this time to Manhattan, where K-State's coming off its biggest win of the year. Can they parlay that into an NCAA tournament berth? We'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com when Sports Daily returns.
By Cortez for Beverly and a slam dunk.
Magnificent. My goodness. What a pass and a beautiful slam dunk.
Set play, looked the defenders off all the way, and a perfect delivery to Beverly, who has 14. The lead is now 24.
Shockers win it 84-64. Back-to-back home wins for the Shockers as Wichita State goes a perfect 15 for 15 at the free throw line. Hockey action tonight, home ice for the Wichita Thunder, 7:05 at Intrust Bank Arena. The Thunder tonight hosting the Fort Wayne Comets downtown. College women's basketball, Friends University wins on the road at Ottawa, 87-72. That is now a 10-game winning streak for the Friends women. I'm Ted, the Sports Head.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
He's got all the insight of what you want to know and maybe some of what you don't want to know. Here's K-State insider Tim Fitzgerald.
All right, we welcome in our buddy Tim Fitzgerald. Go powercat.com, at Life of Fitz on social media. Tim, the Cats went and got the game they had to have. I mean, they had to have that one, I think, at home if they want to get themselves into the tournament. It's interesting to me Jerome Tang keeps saying, and maybe he's lobbying at this point, that 9-9 gets you in. I don't know enough about computers. I'm not smart enough to know if that's good enough for the metrics that haven't really liked K-State this year. Is it? Like, I don't know if it's that simple.
Yeah, you know what? It's not, but it is. It's unfathomable that someone that can go 500 in this conference would be left out. But K-State's non-conference certainly left a little to be desired on their resume. So, I mean, some of those losses seem like not bad losses at the time, but USC stinks, and Miami's sinking fast. Probably loaded down with Nigel Pack money that is pulling them downward. But some of these losses don't look good at this point. And look, you just never know until you play it out. But if you want to get the right 9-9, beating Kansas is part of that equation.
Man, from a betting perspective, Fitz, when that line came out at K-State 4.5, I don't know, it seemed super trappy to me one way or the other. I mean, knowing the way, and you've covered so many of these Sunflower Showdowns, you can almost usually throw predictions out the window. You can throw spreads out the window. In these rivalry games, I mean, it usually comes down to like the last couple possessions typically.
Yeah. What's amazing about that spread is I don't know how Vegas does it. Now, I know all you said is true, but the track record over a 2-week period for Kansas State was low energy, low focus, not competing at the level you need to win. And while I knew that anything can happen, Tommy, I would have bet my house that KU was going to win that game and probably cover. And yet that spread you mentioned kept going down. Someone said it was 2.5 at tip-off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how? Why? What? It just didn't make sense to me, but they knew, and there it was.
It is, and I think I was in the same lane as you, Tim, because we just hadn't seen K-State play well in, what was becoming a long time. And so that's where it really got hard for me to imagine. And at the same time, it seemed at the time like KU was figuring it out. They finally figured out their missing piece, and it was Furphy. So it was almost like the K-State coaching staff went Belichickian on it and said, we'll take away Furphy and they'll be struggling like they did. And I think that's a lot of what happened, right? Like they took him away and KU looked a lot like they'd looked at other times this season.
Yep. And that was the guy I was worried about because everyone else was kind of a known factor. I mean, they stick out. You know how good they are, but Furphy's sneaky good and sneaky on offense in the fact that, you take your eye off him, he's wide open. And he just moves so well without the ball. K-State made it a point to not let him out of their sight and never let him get comfortable and feel a rhythm, and he didn't. But, boy, he's a special player. And also he's a freshman, but he looks 14. So that makes him just knifing you on the court even more painful because it's like that little kid at the rec that steps up and just kills you. Johnny Furphy's special in case they did a great job at taking him.
I want to ask you a question, Fitz, that has nothing to do with the actual game itself, just to get your thoughts on this. So we know that, historically, when Kansas State upsets Kansas in Bramlage, typically there's a court storming, and there have been, notable court stormings over the years in this rivalry inside Bramlage. That didn't happen earlier this week. And is that a Jerome Tang thing? Is that a culture thing being built? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it is. It's further proof of what kind of sway, what kind of hold Jerome Tang has on the student body. I've never seen a coach engage and connect to a student body like this. I mean, whether it's up close at Kansas State or just from afar, but this student base just loves this man. And when he says, let's make it about us and not them, they stop the chant. When he says last year after beating KU, start to expect to win this game, a lot of students came down from, the upper seats to try to storm the court. What was really interesting is the folks down front, the kids that had the best seats, almost blocked the aisles and said, "We're not going on." They're the ones that were probably in those seats last year. And so everyone just ended up standing in the aisles trying to get to the court, but people down front just didn't go. So I thought that was really cool and very interesting. But then, it's quickly followed by Jerome Tang and his players after the handshake line, storming the student section, which is also a pretty cool tradition.
Yeah, court storming haters are no fun to me. Like, they're fun haters, and I don't like fun haters. If the students who are paying, $100,000 to go to school want to storm the court because they're excited that their team won, get out of here with the lectures of this is how you behave at a basketball game. Like, you can kiss my rear. I'd have been on that court.
Yeah,
Tim.
Well, but
it does though.
That's what's important.
I get it. But the level of attention that people give to that just blows me away. Like, these are 18, 19-year-old kids having fun at college. Like, it's okay if they want to go onto that court and have some fun. I look at the schedule, Fitz, and it's an interesting one. So you get, the timing of games is advantageous here. You've got a tough road trip out to Provo, but it comes from a Monday to a Saturday. And then you think, okay, well, and then you get a week off and are back home right before a next Saturday. And then it gets a little tougher because you've got the Monday, Saturday thing on the road. Like Kansas faced against K-State and will face again this week. But at least for the next two, the schedule, the timing is very advantageous for K-State to go get that signature road win, another one. They need it. And then you get TCU back home. Like, I kind of like it here. You look at it, I mean, they've got to go out and execute and do their thing, but at least this part of it is good for them to boost that resume.
That win flipped the script for Kansas State. I mean, you're looking at being 4-6, facing a trip to Provo on Saturday night. Game doesn't tip till 9 p.m. Central Time. It's, it just looks like a trap. But now you won the game, and you're 5-5 going out there, and now it feels like a huge opportunity, not a trap. And so it's amazing what one win can do, and the right win. And you're right. K-State has an opportunity if they can go out there and steal another road win in this incredibly tough conference. They're going to be, back ahead of schedule at 6-5. And I'll just say this: if K-State reverts to the kind of lack of focus and has that letdown after a big win, they're going to lose. BYU is really good. BYU shoots the three exceptionally well. But if they come out with purpose and focus and really that attention to detail, they've still got to value possessions more, they're going to win. This is a very capable team, and I think we saw them starting to understand how to get Tyler Perry on track and run some movement for him, not with him starting it, and let him catch and shoot. And it was so much better on Monday night to see that.
Yeah, speaking of Tyler, from a confidence perspective, 7 of 15 from the field, 4 of 10 from three. He made all but one of his free throws. He put up some shots that were clutch for Kansas State on Monday. So moving forward, as they're playing against BYU and then the rest of the conference schedule, just from a confidence perspective, what do you think a performance like that does to him?
I don't know, Tommy, because we've seen him have good performances and then come back and not play so well. But I think we now have a full understanding why Jerome Tang and his staff leave him on the court. I mean, it's like, rolling a hand grenade into the middle of the game, but you don't know if it's going to go off or when it'll go off. But when it goes off, it's pretty substantial. Now, that wasn't necessarily true at Oklahoma State, where he kind of had a better second half and got some threes down, but the rest of the team just was non-functional at that point. But what he did, I mean, to take over a game in overtime and get the team like Kansas, it says an awful lot about your ceiling. But his floor has been way down there, too. So he's the most volatile up and down performer I've ever seen. He drives coaches crazy, but boy, when he's good, he's often good at the exact right time, like he was on Monday.
Let's talk a little football, Fitz. It was signing day yesterday. That's not what it used to be. It doesn't mean the same thing that it used to mean. What do we think of, so much was made of last year's class, rightfully so. one of the best they've ever had. How did they follow it up this year?
Me and my recruiting staff did a live last night to kind of recap everything. It's up on YouTube that you can watch the replay of it. It's a small class. It didn't have a ton of room for players. You know, you're up against the 85. And they still wanted to bring in some transfers. They still want a little room for transfers. So nationally, it ranks as a really low class. But, you know, my point last night on our live was the 2023 class with Avery Johnson and all those dudes in it was so substantial. It was maybe the best high school class in the state of Kansas in, you know, modern history. This year you come back and it's not nearly as deep, not nearly as good. You still had some players in it. And next year is supposed to be a lot like 23, maybe better. The sandwich in between is a down cycle, so to speak, maybe a more normal year based on past results for the state of Kansas. But what they did get, and I don't care what the ratings are for the entire class, they got 2 6'7" or taller, long, athletic tackles out of the state of Kansas in a down year. One of them, Gus Hawkins, who's now in some services rated, you know, top 100, top 50 in the nation. And, you know, I just really think if you can find that kind of length and tackles in one class, let alone in your own backyard, you've done something right. I think those two guys could pay, you know, big dividends for K-State down the road.
It's back-to-back losses in the last week for Kansas State women's basketball, but you know both of those losses to top 25 teams. Oklahoma last Wednesday, the Texas Longhorns, number 7 in the country, on Sunday. Aoka Lee still out. Looks like that recovery is still progressing, that 4-week span. But now they got through those top 25 opponents. What's your outlook right now on where women's basketball stands?
Yeah, they're going to get her back. They thought maybe this week she'll start doing some stuff, but maybe not playing. You know, and I would just get through this stretch and, you know, don't push that. Make sure she's healthy and ready to go. They do have a little bit easier stretch here. I'm totally spacing what they got, but none of this is surprising. They're still 3-2 without her. I think that's remarkable. The Texas game, they were down. I mean, Texas was handling it. My goodness, K-State just kept fighting back and got that down to 5 or 7 points late until Texas got an answer finally. That's what this team does. Without her, they just scrap and fight and, you know, claw and try to stay in games. That's how they won at Baylor. And if they continue to do that when they get Lee back, it's going to only make them that much better. I'll say it again. I think this is a Final Four worthy K-State team. But doing it is a whole other thing.
Are they going to be able to? Yeah, it's unfortunate because I don't know. Like I keep seeing Lee is on all these watch lists to be. You know, I don't know if this time away is going to cost her some of these postseason accolades that she might have been able to get. But I guess at this point, like, is she going to be back playing at a level that she was quickly enough for K-State to be able to make a run in the women's tournament?
I think so. I mean, let's keep in mind that this wasn't an injury that occurred in the Texas game, 2.5, 3 weeks ago, whatever it is. This was an injury she had been playing on for a span of time. And they finally decided, you playing on it, it's only going to get a little worse, little worse, little worse. So let's shut it down, get you healed up, and then bring you back. And hopefully you're much better down the stretch. That's the line of thinking. And if that works out, it's going to be great for K-State. She'll be, you know, a little bit rested, maybe a hair out of shape, but they've proven they can play a little bit without her. And I think as they build up her stamina and if she stays healthy, by the time the end of the season rolls around, you know, they're going to be, maybe their seeding's going to slide a little bit, but I think everyone will recognize by putting Lee back into that, you really do have a chance to make a run through the Big 12 tournament and into the NCAA tournament. And, you know, play games at home, which is a huge advantage in the women's bracket that you get to do that. But I don't think it'll hurt her standing in the nation. In fact, seeing what K-State, you know, how they're evolving without her only kind of proves her importance to everything. They're not collapsing, but boy, they're pretty good without her and they're really good with her. And I think that only compliments her.
All right, Fitz. Well, we know you've got the recruiting stuff up at Go Power Cat, and thank goodness because none of us have time to follow that. So glad you guys are doing it for us. What else do you have on the site there that people can check out?
Oh my gosh, we had so much going on YouTube yesterday. We had that live. We do the Big 12 Insiders, which comes up at 1 p.m. here on our YouTube channel with myself and Brian Hanley, former K-State offensive lineman. PowerCat podcast went up. Some great recruiting coverage from my recruiting team in written form is also up at Go PowerCat. Lots going on. It never seems to stop. I'm with you in the fact that Wednesday used to be the day of the offseason in college football. And I bet you most fans didn't even realize that Wednesday was signing day yesterday. And the signing period's open, but everyone signs early now and makes December a living nightmare for coaches. And that's the way it has been.
I mean, I'll be honest with everybody out there. It didn't dawn on me. And that used to be one of the biggest days of the year, like professionally, that you had to chase and cover and do all this stuff. The times have certainly changed. All right. Follow Fitz at Life of Fitz on social media. You can find all the work at gopowercat.com. You can find some of those podcasts for free on the Odyssey app. Fitz, appreciate it. Be good.
Thank you, boys. Good to talk to you.
All right, when we come back, we had our segment on betting there. Tommy and I's are official now, so we'll go ahead and get right to that since it's out there. What did we pick and why for the Super Bowl when we come back on Sports Daily? welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Glad to be with you on this Thursday. Our thanks to Tim Fitzgerald. Our thanks to Chelsea Messenger. You can go back and listen to both of those interviews right now for free on the Odyssey app. While we get this segment started, let's do a giveaway. Let's give away some HTO, some free iced tea, some free Brewhouse coffee. Those iced teas available for you at either Wichita location or in Derby. 25 flavors to choose from. Also a free Brewhouse coffee. That would be available at the HTO in Derby there or in East Wichita. One of each. Good luck. 869-1240. First caller will take that. Tommy, we made our picks official with our friends at BetQL. You can find that article on social media there. Tommy and I have each is it reposted now? Like, I'm trying not to just be defiant anymore, but I don't know that, you go through something for a decade. Is it reposted?
I don't know. I mean, my handle is still tweets from Tommy. I'm not changing that, even though the name of the platform has changed. So you can call it Twitter. That's fine with me. I don't have an issue with it.
Retweeted, reposted, whatever it is. I honestly, genuinely don't know what it's technically called anymore. But there you go. Though you can find those. So we'll give you what we did. And it won't come to a surprise to anybody what I did. I've been hinting at it for a long time. I'm going to take the Chiefs because I'm just not betting against Mahomes, Kelsey, and that defense. I'm just not going to do it. And I could lose, but I would be far more filled with regret if I lost it that way after saying what I've been saying all year than the other. So I'm going to stick with my gut and just take the guys that have been there before. We've seen this song and dance with the Patriots, right? At some point, it's just like you got to take what you know, and they just so happen to have this defense, and I'm in on the Chiefs. I'm taking the Chiefs. I'm taking the points. Actually, I'm betting the money line. I'm just betting them to win. But that's where I'm at on it.
Yeah, my only issue with this article that's out is that now it's all in writing. That's my issue. Like, we can say whatever we want, and it is what it is. But this is actually in writing what our picks are. I'm taking a parlay. I've got the Chiefs on the money line. I've got an Isaiah Pacheco anytime touchdown and a Travis Kelce anytime touchdown. I think that obviously the Chiefs winning the game, them leaning on the run with Pacheco. He's gotten into the end zone a couple of times in the playoffs. And then Travis Kelce has been a playoff monster. So I'm putting those three together. I'm going to set up a parlay and try to cash in on that.
I haven't set up my same game parlays. I did go put money on during one of the breaks of that bet I found at BetMGM while we were talking to Chelsea. Total rushing attempts over 51.5. I put like a 2-unit bet on that for me. I really like that. I've got the Chiefs from a preseason bet to win it all that pays 6-1. I hedged that. I'll be honest. I did hedge that just as a backup with a little at the 49ers. So I took a Kelce MVP, I took a Pacheco MVP, and I took a Rice MVP. I also took a Debo MVP. I know Chelsea mentioned CMC. I'm going to, put more to the Chiefs winning there. But if the Niners win, we've talked about Debo. I think Debo could be, the kind of player that doesn't. I think the thing that makes the the Super Bowl MVPs a little bit difficult is there's a decent chance we've seen defensive players get that award in the past. I think there's a decent chance that could happen here. Like, I could see a Nick Bosa MVP. I would be curious to see how the play L'Jarius Sneed made. Like, let's say Debo and Ayuk don't do much, and Sneed made that kind of play in the game like he made against Baltimore. There would be a case for him to be the game's MVP. You could easily make a case that Xavier Sneed was the MVP of the AFC Championship game. And so that's probably why some of those offensive numbers get juicy. I totally understand why Travis Kelce is the biggest liability, because everybody can see it glaring at us in the face. Like, if you buy into the storyline angles and the Taylor Swift and all that, well, there it is, Travis Kelce. And more of it has to do with the way he's been playing lately. But Rashee Rice, Tommy, targets in his recent games. I'm going to give you his target list, okay? And we'll take it back. Let's take it back to the Raiders game, right? The Raiders win on November 26th. Here's how many targets he's had in every game since then. 10, 9, 10, 9, 12. The final game of the year was 6. I don't know how much to look into that, right? Against the Bengals when they weren't really playing for anything. And then 12 against Miami, only 4 against Buffalo, but then another 9 against Baltimore. When you're taking in that kind of target load, like if he could, like, let's just say he has 80 yards and a couple of touchdowns, or 120 yards and a touchdown, even if he just, replicated what he did against Miami with 8 catches, 130 yards and a touchdown. At 66 to 1 odds, I mean, I think the volume's going to be there to at least throw a dart at that.
Well, and I think that to your point, as far as targets that he gets, I mean, the way that Rashee Rice plays the game is the yards after catch, right? That's what he does. And so I would imagine that if you're going to bet Rashee Rice as the MVP, and if you're going to bet his over in yards and his, maybe an anytime touchdown or whatever, then at that point you also probably need to look at over his targets, because he's gonna need to be targeted quite a bit to get to those numbers, because he is a yak, kind of receiver. So I do like that. I also got a text from somebody a minute ago saying, okay, you did that parlay. What are the odds on that parlay? So my Chiefs money line, my Pacheco anytime TD, and my Travis Kelce anytime TD. You parlay those together, the three-leg parlay. It's plus 490. So it's about 5 to 1 to get that. So it's decent value, I think, for that sort of thing. And I think that those 3 things are, likely to happen. So that's one I'm going to put my money on.
Yeah, I don't know I've always found some luck late in the year, because everything funnels through those 3 players for the Chiefs. Those are the players I like to put in the same game parlays. It's Pacheco, it's Rice, it's Kelce. Their volume is so high right now because the Chiefs aren't really trusting anybody else, that I like that. On San Francisco's side, it may get a little more interesting. I don't know where I'll go on those, and I'll do a million of them, right? I love the same game parlays, small bets on the same game parlays. Those are a lot of fun, so I'll do those. But, of the significant bets in the Super Bowl, I've got that over total rushing attempts between the 2 teams. I've got the Chiefs just as outright winners. I did hedge because I got that early, I got that preseason at 6 to 1. So I hedged just a little bit on the 49ers to cover that. And then I think those are the biggest ones I have. My dad called me yesterday to ask me about the over under. And I said, I'd go the under. I won't actually bet it because I hate betting unders. I don't like doing it, but I would bet the under for sure. And then I kind of went through some of the numbers with him. I think, and I don't remember off the top of my head, it's like 9 out of the last 12 games they've played, they've been under that number. Right now, to be fair, San Francisco is maybe the best offense in football. And if this game is competitive, it's very likely leaning to the over. But it's just, again, best defense. Spags has a lot of time to prepare. I wonder what the turnover number, and I haven't looked at this. I wonder what the interception number is for Purdy. Like I definitely could see Purdy throwing a pick, right? Just with the way the Chiefs secondary plays and the things that they'll do defensively. I haven't looked at that one. That one might be another one I'd consider. We don't really get to do the novelty props here in Kansas. Those aren't ever available for us. So I don't have a strong take on any of those, like the Gatorade color or the anthem length or anything like that. It's all football, and all football, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I'm going to go with the Chiefs to win the game. I don't know. Why do you think that is? Chelsea mentioned more money's going on the Chiefs, but the line's not moving. And I can't, does that mean that the Sharps are betting the Niners? And so they don't want to give the Sharps any more ammo. I think that's what that means. Yeah. Like they don't want to give them more points if they're already betting the Niners. They don't want to give them more. That's interesting. Again, my brain tells me to take San Francisco in this game. It does. That's where my brain, it's because of injuries more than anything else. It's because of the significant, potentially, injuries that the Chiefs face in this game. I just can't, my gut won't take me there. And so my wallet will follow my gut and not my brain. But I get it. I get why the Sharps are on San Francisco. I mean, the Chiefs are missing maybe their best pass rusher this year, right? They're missing maybe their best offensive lineman. So you could make a case, and I know Chris Jones is good, but he hasn't been as good this year. The Chiefs could be out their top offensive and defensive linemen in this game, Tommy. I get it. I get why the Sharps are on San Francisco for sure.
Well, one of the things that stuck with me yesterday when we had Alex Gould on the show, and I was leaning towards this anyway, but when he talked about, look, if you're going to go Chiefs money line, don't go Chiefs +2.
Oh, sure.
Go Chiefs money line. And that just, to me, makes a lot more sense, obviously, and as opposed to, thinking the game is going to come down to a point or two. I just think that if this line moves, and I don't know what direction, in the next couple of days it will, now would probably be the time, if you're thinking to jump on Chiefs money line, to probably do that. Because, wouldn't you think that if the line does move, it's going to go in the other direction?
Well, if the sharp money's going there, no. I think if it moves, it would move more toward San Francisco. Well, no, I guess I get what you're saying, because so much money just keeps going to the Chiefs. Maybe it does move down to 1.5 where we've seen it. The money line to me has always been the bet. Like, I don't. This is, 2's not a great number anyway, right? Like, it's you want 3. You'd like to have at least 3.5 if you're taking points. 2 doesn't do you a ton of good unless it's a 1-point game, which happens from time to time. But, it's usually a situation where 2's not going to help you much anyway. So if you get just a little bit, yeah, you take the money line. But I don't think it's getting any better than 2 for the Chiefs. I'll say that. Like, I don't see a scenario where all of a sudden this comes 3.5, right, for San Fran. I don't think your money line's getting any better than it is right now. And in that scenario, just wait, right? Like, just wait it out. I don't know. I do know that I just like the Chiefs to win the game, right? Like, even just take all the strategy aside. When you're the underdog and you like them to win the game anyway, you always take the money line. That's the way I think about it. And maybe that's the wrong way to do it. Maybe taking those points is a safe, but if I like a team and they're an underdog, Tommy, I'm betting the money line. I'm trying to get that opportunity at some more better odds.
Well, it depends on where the line is. If they're a 9-point underdog, the money line may not be a great play.
It is, though, if I think they're going to win the game anyway.
Sure.
You might get 2 or 3 to 1. That's what I mean. Like, if I like the underdog, I almost never take the points, even as a safety mechanism. If I'm unsure about a game, I might take the points. But if I'm like, okay, I remember there was a game where the Patriots were upset by the Titans in recent years. That was a game where it was like, I think the Titans were like 7-point underdog. This is a playoff game. And I'm like, man, I just love the Titans in that game. And we, through some friends or whatever, like that was a good bet. I always do that. So I'm taking the money line. I don't care about the points.
I'm looking at our friends over at BetQL, and they do their sharp better report and where things, the sharp money coming in for the game. 74% of the money from the sharp bettors is on the Chiefs, and 70% of the tickets are on the Chiefs.
That's why I can't figure out why the line hasn't moved. I told you that I thought by the end of this, the Chiefs would be favored. Now, the injuries aren't letting that happen anymore. But when we first saw the line, and it was at, what was it at? 2.5?
2.5, I think.
I remember. And then the next morning, so like by Monday when we checked it of last week, it was already down to 1.5. And I had predicted, I was like, the Chiefs are going to end up favorites in this game because the public's going to see this narrative we all see, right? Well, I'm not betting against Mahomes again. But it just hasn't happened. And to hear that the sharp money's all still, like, I can't figure it out. And what did I say this to you here? I don't remember. I said it to several people. Like, I felt like last week in that Ravens game, Vegas was about to make a lot of money on the Chiefs, and they did, right? Like, I was like going into it, I'm like, man, this feels like Vegas is just going to clean up on the Chiefs.
And that's why I've not understood this entire time. Mahomes is an underdog. And why you're giving him another chance as an underdog?
Because Vegas, I don't think, takes too much emotion into it, and they just see 2 evenly matched teams. They see both teams with good offenses and good defenses, and to me, they see a Chiefs team that's facing some really significant injury woes and a coach that's not going to do what Baltimore did. Like, I think those are the things that Vegas is factoring in. Like, if Let's say Amenahue and Tooney are locks to play, I don't think we'd be seeing the line that we're seeing now. But you really are looking at it where the Chiefs could be missing their best offensive lineman and their best defensive lineman. That's a pretty substantial thing to overcome in a game that we all feel like is going to be this close anyway. I mean, the Niners have been juggernauts when they're healthy this year. And they're healthy. Look at what they did against the Lions in the second half of that game. The Lions beat the Chiefs. Again, that was an eternity ago. You can't take but like the Lions are not a pushover. So for San Francisco to come in the second half and do that, I mean, again, just a small little reminder of how great they've been at times this year. And in all games but the game they played against the Ravens in the regular season, how great they were against great teams, right? Like when they played good teams, they killed them. So I get it. And again, my brain says the Chiefs, just this time, they have too much to overcome. But my gut says, yeah, but just bet on the defense like you have been all year long. And that's what I'm doing, right? It's just a bet on the defense. I don't think the offense is going to make the mistakes they made earlier in the year. But is that even enough? Well, I don't know. But I do know that the defense is good enough that they can win any game that they play in. And I'm not going to bet against that defense with Spags 2 weeks to prepare and all of these things against a quarterback who had a wonderful season. And I'm not a Brock Purdy hater, but I'm also not a Brock Purdy's an MVP in this league guy yet either. Let's see him go do this in this game, right? What did he do against the Ravens in that big spot? Laid a big old leg. If he does that in this game could get ugly. And he's going against the best defense in football, at least the best one he's seen.
What did he do in the second half against the Lions in the NFC Championship? I know, but he brought him back and they won the game. So I think
they ain't coming back like that against the Chiefs defense, right? Like he can't play that way for a stretch of this game or they're toast. They're not going to do that against this defense. They won't be able to. The Lions defense isn't terrible, but it's not the Chiefs defense. If you give the Chiefs that kind of lead, and I know their offense hasn't been great in second halves, Chelsea mentioned that, and it was a good number, good stat. But if the Chiefs have a 14-point lead at halftime, based on what we've seen all year, like your chances are low to overcome that. They just don't allow things in this. Their defense has locked people up all year in the second halves of games. They just did it against Baltimore, and Baltimore had the number one offense in football right ahead of San Francisco. Now, I think San Francisco's offense is better than Baltimore's. The statistics aside, they have more dynamic playmakers all across the board. It's a quarterback bet both directions. It's a Purdy having to face the Chiefs defense, and it's just a Mahomes as an underdog, silly whatever thing. I'm in on that too. I'm on the Chiefs. Money where my mouth is, it's there.
I get it, and I put it on paper too. I mean, I'm going Chiefs on the money line. I think that the fact that they're getting points that sways me to taking Chiefs on the money line because of Mahomes as an underdog and all of that. So I get it. I mean, I'm right there with you. I do think that the one thing that makes me nervous, and I've talked about it multiple times, is that if that game plan for San Francisco, if that works for them, that's going to be a challenge for Kansas City. But right now I do like the Chiefs on the money line.
It's there's a billion things, by the way, that worry me a bit in this game for the Chiefs. I cannot wait for this game. I cannot wait for this game. This is, last year's game ended up being good. It ended up being great. This one to me feels way more unpredictable than that one. 869-1240. What do you think, Chiefs fans? We'll have more time to go over this tomorrow, get everyone's thoughts. All right, we're going to take another quick break. Last full segment of Sports Daily coming your way. All right, Andy Reid's getting asked again today about the retirement thing, Tommy. And again, he's like, I'm not deciding today and I'm not deciding Sunday. I'm kind of like getting a little uncomfortable here. Like didn't he just deny it last year and say, I'm not retiring? Like, I can't remember what he did.
Remember, he did it after the win. Like, it was one of those, like, I'm going to Disney World type things. But I seem to remember him on the field.
Like, why not just say I'm not retiring?
Right after the game saying I'm not going anywhere. That's what he did a year ago.
Why not just say it now, though? Like, why not just be like, I'm not retiring?
So I'm not concerned about that part of it. I'm concerned that he said he's not going to decide on Sunday. Because last year he talked about it on Sunday, like on Super Bowl Sunday after the game. If he's not willing to do that this year, that's where I get it. It makes me a little bit antsy.
Why am I getting caught in this trap? I do this for a living. Like, why am I getting caught in this trap? I know that people have to ask that question. I know he's not going to answer that question. It's all irrelevant, but I'm getting caught in this trap. And I don't know who I blame for that, but I blame somebody. Maybe it was Florio who toyed out the idea like months ago that coaches might not be taking other jobs because they think the Chiefs job might come open. And I'm like, what? Okay, that's weird. Maybe that seed getting planted in my head, maybe he's to blame for all this, but like, this isn't something I normally pay any attention to. I'm like, whatever. Like, we have to ask the question. He's not going to answer the question. We move on with our lives, but it's in my head now. And now I'm curious.
I did read a conspiracy theory that part of the reason why Eric Bieniemy spoke to the team is that he'll take over for Andy Reid when Reid retires at the end of the game.
Yeah. I'm fairly certain that won't happen. I don't think Eric Bieniemy's first foray as a head coach is going to be of the Chiefs if Andy Reid retires. I would be stunned by that. Like, absolutely floored if that happened. But it's in my head now, and I don't like that because usually I can take that stuff and just be like, nah, doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. But now I'm like trying to like read between the lines, and it's like coaches, when they're going to take another job or when they're interested in another job, they'll always say, I'm just focused on this right now. Right. Like that's like the token answer of like, okay, so he's clearly interested in the other one and talking. Right. Because when coaches aren't going to take a job now, they put out Twitter videos or whatever that, some hype video, but they would just say like, no, I'm not taking another job. Whenever they are interested in interviewing, they give you, these answers where you dance around a little bit. kind of feels like Andy Reid's dancing around a little bit. And maybe that only means like genuinely, like, let me get through this and then like I'll talk to my wife. Maybe, but we all know how life works. Tommy, imagine if like there was some monumental decision you had to make and not talking about it with your family until whatever. No, like the instant that becomes something you have to consider, you start talking about it with your family. That's not going to distract Andy Reid from what he has to do. So I don't know.
Well, and look, I think the other thing too that you have to keep in mind, and we talked about it before, and I always go back to it, is you've got Patrick Mahomes, and it's not just that you have Mahomes, it's the fact that you've got Mahomes in his prime, and that's going to continue for God knows how many more years. Clark Hunt, is probably going to be an authority on this sort of thing, and he was on another radio program, and his quote was, "I have no sense from Andy that he's ready to retire. He loves what he's doing. I know he's energized by the team that he has. I know he loves coaching Patrick Mahomes. He's got a generational quarterback. So I look forward to having Andy as our head coach for many more years." I feel like he's the owner of the team.
What would he say though if it was the
I
other
think
way?
he could
What
be
would he actually be
I
able
think
to
he
say?
could be a little bit less like, we look forward to having conversations with Andy about his future after the year, or Andy has a decision to make at the end of the year. Or I think there are other ways that he could have worded that, because to me, that comment is fairly definitive from the owner of the team.
Do you think if Andy Reid was going to retire, let's just pretend like he was, do you think the team would know about it? Do you think he'd tell his team that?
No, I don't think so. I think he might tell Mahomes, but I don't think he would tell the team.
What about Kelsey? And I don't.
Yeah.
I think there's less of a chance Kelsey retires than Andy
Right.
Reid.
Do you think Kelsey would tell the team? I think he would probably tell Patrick.
But not anybody else. Don't you think that would be like the ultimate motivator, though?
Sure.
If you did?
Sure.
I kind of think you would, right? I kind of think if you knew right now that this was going to be it, I think you'd tell the team. You'd beg them not to tell anybody else. Of course they would. And that's how we would have more concrete media reports. So that's the other thing I keep.
But I
going
think the
back
difference with Reid specifically is that Andy Reid is not a win one for the Gipper kind of guy. He's not he doesn't want to make it about himself. He doesn't want to.
Yeah, I know, but he's a smart guy. He's smart. He knows that would motivate the team. Of course it would. Like, you use any advantage you can get as a coach. You look for anything you can find. That's the thing that makes me okay. So first and foremost, Andy Reid's just not that old, right? Now he's been coaching forever, but he's not that old. And so that's always been my thing. Like, what else would he do and why would he stop now? But I also think that if either of those guys was going to be done after this game, the chances of that not making its way out in a very concrete media report seems so slim to me. And if they really do have that tight of a ship, more credit to them. But that's the other thing that keeps making me think this is all smoke but no fire. I still think they'll both be back next year. Shame on me for letting any of this get in my head, because usually I'm better than that. But it's there. It's firmly planted in there. And now I keep wondering about it. More Reid than Kelsey. I don't think Kelsey's going anywhere. 869-1240. We'll come back. We'll tell you what's on the network today next.
Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, everybody. You got the Jerome Tang radio show tonight on KFH, and you can tune in tonight right here on KFH, or you'll have it on the Odyssey app. Either place, you can catch the Jerome Tang radio show. Regular programming up until then, Jim Rome after us, and then Bob and Jeff locally beginning at 2 o'clock. Tommy, one more day of this week, and then it'll be about Super Bowl time.
I can't wait. Looking forward to it.
We'll have it all for you. Voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson, joining us tomorrow as well. For Jad and Tommy, I'm Jacob. See you then.